A few days ago, I shared a video about the secrets to you talking to anyone, anytime, and then anywhere. And after watching that video, guess what? Someone left a very important question in the comment section of that video. And the person said, and I quote the person, "Can you make a video on how to start a conversation with someone?" And honestly, I thought that was a very good question. And so I replied to the person that I am going to definitely create a video on how to start a conversation with anyone, anytime, anywhere, as requested by the person, and also for the benefit of others that really have interest in it also. Okay, because knowing how to talk to people is one thing that most people are really struggling with silently in their lives. But actually, knowing how to walk up to someone and then start the conversation is where many people get stuck in reality. The truth is, sometimes you will see someone that you would like to talk to, but suddenly, guess what? Your mind really goes blank. And this is not funny at all, because it is so embarrassing. Trust me, if you have this experience. And because you are embarrassed, it will now make you to, start thinking and then also asking yourself these questions like, what should I say? What if the conversation becomes awkward? What if they don't want to talk to me? And before you know it, guess what? The moment has passed. So in this video, I want to show you a simple and practical way, for you to start a conversation with almost anyone, anytime, anywhere, with no, complicated lines, no pretending to be someone that you are not, but just a simple way, that you can really start a conversation. And to the person who asked me, to make this video on how to start a conversation with anyone, anytime, anywhere, from the depth of my heart, I am saying that thank you so much for the question, okay? I really appreciate it. And I want you to know that sometimes one person's request or question can really help many people who are quietly struggling with the same thing. So this video is really for you. And I want to really use this medium to say that if you have ever watched, one of my videos, and then you had a thought within you that I wish, Dora Bob, you could really help me to talk about so thing. I will be glad, to really talk about anything that you want me to really talk about. So you can always count on me by leaving your thoughts in the comment section always, because trust me, I go through every and each of the comments that you drop for me, because sometimes your question may really become the next lesson that we really discuss here on Simplicity in Peak channel. Okay, now the first thing that you really need to understand is this: you do not need to perfect any opening line to start a conversation, not at all. Although many people really believe that they really need to sound extremely interesting. They need to sound extremely funny, or they need to sound extremely intelligent. But the truth is this: Most good conversations do not really start with something extraordinary as we may always think about it. But most good conversation, they always or often start with something that is very simple, and the goal of most good, conversation is not to really impress the person, but the goal is to rather create, a small connection. And once you understand that, starting a conversation becomes much easier. And the beauty is that you will be more relaxed, calm, and then your mind will definitely be at peace. So, at this point, it is very important for me to really give you a simple method that you can always remember anywhere, okay? You have to observe, you have to ask, and then you have to respond. Now, let us start by talking about the first one, which is to observe. Before you speak, observe what is really happening around you. Look at, the environment, and then look at what the person is doing. Look for something that you can naturally respond to. For example, maybe someone is reading a book. Maybe you are both waiting in the same place. Maybe the person is, wearing something so interesting. Maybe something is really happening around you. You do not, always need to really create a topic from nothing, because sometimes the topic is already in front of you. You just have to notice it. So what you just have to do is simply to pay a close attention and then say, for example, I noticed that you are reading that book. Is it good? Is it interesting? Or the place is really busy today. Have you been here before? Or simply say, that looks interesting. What is it? Stop trying to, invent a perfect conversation all the time, but you should rather start paying close attention to real life. And the second one that we are going to be talking about is ask a simple question. And please understand this, that your first question does not need to be deep, but it just only, needs to open the door so you can just ask these simple, questions like, what brought you here? Have you been here before? How has your day been? What do you usually do? Or what kind of things are you really interested in? These are simple questions that you can ask. Now, the problem is this. Many people often think, the first sentence, and that is why they want to always say something that is so perfect that the other person will immediately be impressed with them. But a good conversation does not, always work like that. Because sometimes a simple hey, how has your day been? It's just enough, to start a conversation. But here is, something that is very important. Now, listen to this. Starting a conversation is not the same thing as asking someone question after question, because, you are not, conducting an interview with this person. Now, for example, when you ask someone that, what do you do? They say to you, I am a graphic designer. Then you immediately ask them, where do you live? they answer you. Then you ask, are you married? They answer you. And before you know it, the conversation feels like an interrogation. So instead, listen to what the person has just said. And if they say, I am a graphic designer, you can just say, oh, that is interesting. What made you to really choose graphic design? You see now, you are not just asking random questions, but you are rather responding to the person. And that is exactly what makes a conversation feels natural. Listen, to the answer before thinking about your next question. And remember always that a conversation is a two-way street, which means that you cannot just keep on asking questions and then upon questions without you really sharing anything about yourself. So, the next time, if someone says to you that I enjoy photography, you should say to the person that that is really interesting. I have always admired people who can, capture meaningful moments and make it personal. Then you now share something small about yourself. And so ask, listen, share. That is how a good conversation begins to feel natural, because you are not trying to perform, but you are simply, allowing two people to learn something about each other. Okay, now let's talk about something that many people are really afraid of. And what is that? Awkward silence. Sometimes you will start a conversation and then suddenly nothing, I mean nothing, because the conversation becomes quiet. And you immediately think that, oh, I have failed. Now, I want you to relax, my dear. No, you have not failed, because a quiet conversation is not an emergency, and you are not responsible for, entertaining, someone every second. So, if a conversation becomes quiet, you can simply return, to something that they have mentioned earlier to you in the conversation. So you can say to them, by this way, you mentioned, you know, that thing that you enjoy, for example, music. What kind of music do you really listen to? Or you can simply make a new conversation or observation about what is really happening around you. The goal is not to make every conversation perfect, but the goal is to really, stop running away from every moment that the conversation becomes slightly uncomfortable or quiet. I want to give you, a challenge at this point. For the next 7 days, start one simple conversation every single day. Not 10 conversation, not 20 conversations, but just one simple conversation. You can simply do it like this. On the first day, greet someone and then ask them a simple question. On the second day, make an observation. On the third day, you can just ask them, something that they really enjoy. Then on the fourth day, listen carefully and then ask a follow-up question. On the fifth day, you have to really share something about yourself. And then on the sixth day, talk to someone that you normally would have ignored. And on the seventh day, start a conversation without you really trying to, impress the person. Remember, you are not trying to become the loudest person in the room, but you are simply, trying to, train yourself to become more comfortable with being connected, with people. Okay. And to the person who asked me to explain how to start a conversation, I hope this makes, the first step simple and clearer for you, because sometimes we do not really need more confidence before we act. Sometimes we gain confidence because we finally take the first small step. So the next time that you find yourself standing beside someone and thinking, I don't know what to say, remember this: observe something, ask something that is simple, and then listen to the answer, and then respond naturally, because you do not need a perfect word to begin a conversation, but you simply need, the courage to begin the conversation. And if at this point you see that this video genuinely helps you to really understand, conversations better now than before, then consider subscribing to Simplicity in Peak channel, because this channel is really built around simple lessons that can really help us to think better, grow stronger, and become better versions of ourselves, one step at a time. And if there is something that you would genuinely like me, to explain in a future video in this channel, please do not hesitate to leave it in the comment section of this video. And believe me when I say that your question might really help someone else somewhere. Okay, like this video, share this video, turn on your notification bell, and if you have not, just do so. I am glad, and it's coming from the depth of my heart, that with the help of this video, you no longer be asking yourself, how will I start a conversation with anyone, anytime, anywhere? Therefore, I will see you again in my next video.